Ladies and gentlemen, we have a trade. We have a trade. We have a good old-fashioned baseball trade. I feel unprepared. I wasn't ready for a trade this early on the 26th here, but here we are. Maybe not a blockbuster. Dylan Floro is coming to the Minnesota Twins for Jorge Lopez. So, although maybe not the biggest impact deal that we will see this trade season, I think it's a unique one, and it's an interesting one. To me, this comes down to the Minnesota Twins getting some certainty. I think they're giving up some potential upside to get someone who is maybe a little bit more steady, a little bit more reliable, a little bit more of a sure bet in Dylan Floro. You see here Floro, a 32-year-old who's going to be a free agent at the end of this year, right-handed relief pitcher. And we'll dig into some of the numbers here at Fangraphs first. Let me get out of my own way here. So as you can see, Floro, this is a guy that's been pitching for a while and pitching well, by the way. The last 3 years entering this year, a 2.59 ERA, 2.81 ERA, 3.02 ERA, and then this year a 4.54 ERA. So obviously, this is why he was available to be acquired for Jorge Lopez, who's also struggling this year. But beyond that, some encouraging numbers elsewhere. We see a 9.3 K per nine, which is actually a career high for him, without seeing really any change in his walk rate from last year. We look at the strikeout percentage, and the walk percentage. Those have, as you would expect, similar jumps. And again, the K percentage is his career high. So the ERA, again, not impressive. The WHIP, especially not impressive, 1.49. So what's going on here? The primary culprit, this is sort of sometimes things aren't this tidy, but look at the BABIP. Batting average on balls in play went from 297 to 282, 288, and all of a sudden it's 397 for Dylan Floro this season. So for whatever reason, this guy is a big-time ground ball pitcher, and he's kind of going back to his earlier in his career. He was over 55% ground balls once again this season. That's sort of something that's going to happen if you go up a lot of ground balls. Your BABIP's probably going to be higher. But we can see in prior years he's up at this rate and has a BABIP of literally 100 points less a couple of times. So kind of an odd season so far for Floro. We're going to check out some more of him. So just jumping over here to Baseball Reference, I'm just going to take a look at his numbers here because I can kind of fit more stuff here. Just want to call out that this guy has 311 career games under his belt. So this guy's been a reliever in the big leagues for quite a long time. But as you see here, his FIP, his fielding independent pitching, which really tries to boil things down to home runs, strikeouts, and walks, that's a really good FIP, 2.78, much better than his ERA, obviously. And it's because, again, the strikeouts are very solid, the walks are solid, and he doesn't give up that many home runs. In fact, just 2 home runs this year in 39 2/3 innings pitched. So that's great to see out of Dylan Floro. Let's jump over to Baseball Savant. So if you're a bit more of a visual person, you like these kind of heat maps from the percentile rankings from Baseball Savant. Here's Dylan Floro here. Lots of red, which is good. That means he's doing well. And kind of to jump back to the BABIP, sometimes guys just have bad BABIPs because people are crushing the ball off of him. His barrel rate is outstanding. He's a ground ball pitcher, so that might not be too surprising. But his hard hit rate isn't as bad as you may think it might be given his BABIP. It's below league average, but it's at the 43rd percentile, and its average exit velocity is in the 71st percentile. So that's actually pretty good. So Dylan Floro, I think this is sort of maybe a lazy analysis, but I think it's pretty easy to look at a lot of this and say the guy has been unlucky. Now, of course, we're taking just kind of a snapshot look, and things are often much more nuanced than that. That's why I say that's maybe kind of a lazy take. But in terms of his velocity, that's maintaining. So it's not like he hasn't pitched poorly because his velo's been dropping. That's also maybe an indication of health. That's not always the case, but typically you'd think if a guy's maintaining velocity, there's a good sign that his health is staying consistent. We'll just even take a look at the game by game. That's also looking pretty consistent as well. Dylan Floro, it's not as if this guy's going to help close out many games, although he does have quite a few saves in his career and even some this year. But comparatively, this is Jorge Lopez. And again, these baseball savant sliders aren't everything, but it is just such an easy snapshot. And in terms of team control, the one factor is that Dylan Floro is a free agent at the end of this year, and Jorge Lopez is arbitration eligible at the end of this year. Now, does that mean that Jorge Lopez, is he a non-tender candidate? Probably. So maybe it doesn't really matter. Maybe the Twins wouldn't have kept Lopez for next year anyway. Maybe the Marlins won't, but depending on how much his projected salary goes up, you see he's only making $3.5 million this year, so nothing too crazy. I can't imagine it's going to jump too much with him pitching so poorly. But who knows? Maybe this guy turns it back around. It's possible. This obviously sort of puts a close on the trade that acquired him from Baltimore. Although there's these 2 months of Floro, he's not going to impact it that much. Clearly, that was a bad trade. Jorge Lopez went from a lights-out dominant closer in just a half season to being, unreliable with the Twins. So that trade is not going to end up to be a good one. And it could end up looking even worse. This is actually a risky trade, I think, for the Twins. Again, they're getting a more certain player, I think, in Dylan Floro. His kind of range of outcomes, I think, aren't as crazy as Lopez. I think with Lopez, he may just never be a reliable pitcher ever again, or he could recapture what he was in Baltimore. So I think it's interesting, and I think I'll give the Twins a little bit of credit to sort of acknowledge this isn't working. We're not going to just sit around and sort of keep investing in this and waiting on this to work. We're going to turn this guy into something else and see if that will work. I'm rooting for Jorge Lopez to get it back together, a guy who spent some time on the injured list due to mental health concerns. So, rooting for him, and maybe Miami will be a better fit for him, hopefully. And Dylan Floro, hopefully this benefits both players, both teams. But there is definitely a path to see that. Again, it's not as if Floro's been lights out. Floro, excuse me. I pronounced that one a little weird. But it's not as if he's been lights out, especially he had a good start to the season and hasn't been pitching well in the more recent months. So it's not like he's some kind of lock to be a reliable reliever this year. And there is that chance that maybe it just sort of clicks with Lopez. Maybe Miami has a fix that they're going to try, or maybe just a new change of scenery will help him get back on track. And oh boy, would that be a tough pill to swallow after how poorly all the trades went last year at the deadline. I think Lopez is really looking lost right now. So I think this was the right move to do in the moment. We'll see if that means this was a good trade in the long run. We'll see. So again, not a huge trade, but not a blockbuster, but I think this is pretty interesting. And the Twins get a reliable piece to add to the bullpen, a guy who has some certainty, hopefully, and can. Again, there are reasons to believe that Dylan Floro can pitch much better than he has to date. So thanks for checking this video out. Let me know what you think about this trade. Thanks for all of the support from the channel members who basically sponsor all of these videos. Here are the premium members. We'll talk again very soon.